So tonight, what I'm going to be talking to you about is really how we can support our dogs who maybe have a bit of extra needs. Maybe they're anxious, maybe they're reactive, maybe they're overstimmed by the outside world. How we might help them feel more comfortable in public spaces, which I think is a really hot topic as we head into the summer months. A lot of people that I work with really struggle with like a limited lifestyle, um, uh, because they've got their dog's anxiety to consider when bringing their dog out, and so we're going to think about how we might slowly grow that world. The big caveat here is that I don't advise doing any of this without some strong foundational work in place, right? Like, are you making sure that their needs are being met on a daily basis? Are you managing the day-to-day life and environment so that way they're not being triggered all the time? Are you helping them regulate their nervous system and feel safe and connected? If you're curious on how to do that, please send me a message. So with that foundational work in place, what I'm going to offer you is a 3-point framework around how you might think about bringing your dog out into the big wide world. I want you to think of before the outing, during the outing, and after the outing. And when I say outing, this is an intentional trip to a public space or maybe a busier high street or a park, with the sole purpose of working on that with the dog. Because this really helps us detach from outcome of, okay, I'm going to take my dog to the pub and see how it goes. I really want to order that pint. I really want that fish and chips. Instead, it's like, I'm going to support my dog to be in a pub for the amount of time that makes sense for the dog. So be prepared to get in and get out. So before the outing, we want to think about the day before. I also want to say, if you have any questions at any point, this is a little live. There is a chat feature, so please pop your head in. Just ask any questions that come up. We want to think about the day before. What's that look like? Making sure that day isn't like too arousing and overstimulating, but still meets their needs and is nourishing. Because when we can make sure we meet their needs as a dog, as a domesticated animal, and particularly, the breed, if you know the breed, what are their breed specific needs, then we're feeding their resilience, right? We're feeding their ability to cope with stress and recover from it. So that could look like free work in your garden. That could look like therapeutic enrichment, something to sniff, lick, chew. That could look like a shredding project, or some tea touch, if you know what that is. Just making sure that their needs are being met the day before. Then I want you to think about your destination ahead of time. Think of somewhere you can go that might grow the world a little, but isn't too, highly arousing. So if you really want to be someone who can take your dog to a cafe, don't go to the cafe at 9 a.m. when everyone's getting their coffee. Go during quiet hours, set them up for success. If you want to be able to take your dog on a picnic, again, don't go on a weekend. Try and go on a quieter day. Same with a high street. You might, support your dog to be okay with walking in a busier area, but don't pick peak hours. I would say make a plan, but then plan to throw the plan out the window. So if your plan is to take a dog to a pub and you think it might be a quiet moment and you get there and there's like 4 dogs in there and your dog is dog reactive, like ditch the plan. We want to move at the pace that makes sense for our dog and where they're at, and not force them into situations that they can't yet handle. Then you want to pack your bag, right? Like get some treats that are easily accessible for scatter feeding. If you're at a point where, you're getting your dog to settle in a space, think about a lick mat, think about a chew. If you do relaxation training, bring a mat. A tea touch body wrap. It's very simple. It's seemingly, not looking like that much of a tool, but it is a really powerful way to like regulate a dog's nervous system. And if you are doing this using these wraps at home, you can then bring it out. There's my dog. You can bring that out into the public space. So that's before, right? Like actually like really thinking it through and having a bit of a plan and being prepared to adapt that plan as it goes. And then, okay, so you want to think about during the outing. So if there's more than one of you, it's always good to pick a captain, right? Who is doing the handling and the main communicating? Because there needs to be quite a strong amount of communication and connection with our dog. And having that one person who's on the other end of the lead can just really support them with clarity around the communication. Also, if you have another person with you, that means that you can be responsible for handling the dog and someone else can be responsible for ordering the coffee. The human management side of things might just be easier. So then you want to think about a few different things, right? If you are going somewhere in a car or public transit, when you arrive into a new area or place, you really want to like support your dog to land into that and orient. So landing is like establishing that connection, like, right, we're going to get out of the car and we are going to go on a walk and do a thing. So you might do some T-touch with your dog to help them feel connected and regulated. You might just do some like cues like look, anything. You might even just do some deep breathing, right? Anything that kind of lands both of you into the experience that you're about to have. And then you want to orient, right? So actually, like if you're going into a cafe, for example, you've just got out of the car, don't go straight into the cafe. Just move them around the neighborhood, like go around the quiet streets first. Just help them kind of get a sense of their space and their surroundings. And then similarly, you want to repeat that when it's time to go inside. So before going inside, have a moment with them. Tell them, be like, right, we're going to go inside. We're going to do something. We're going to go and just have that established connection before the world gets slightly louder. And then go in and, again, orient them to that surrounding. So I think one of the most common mistakes that I see all the time, not just when I'm at work, but when I'm out in the world living my life, is that a dog comes into a pub, for example, and the person goes right to the queue. Maybe not necessarily giving the dog any communication, and now the person is queuing, and the dog is like, what's going on? Where are we? What are we doing? Right? So really being like, okay, would you like to check this space out? Would you like to do a little sniff? Go with the dog. Say, hey, do you want to sniff that? Oh, look, there's a water bowl there. Oh, yeah, we're just sniffing. Well done. And just communicate. Help them get comfortable and understand what's going on. Similarly, if you're going to go sit somewhere in a booth or something, don't go straight to the booth. Like really like let the dog check the place out, get that need met first. You also want to think about, just how you know whether your dog is coping or not is really important, right? Like, do you have a sense of their subtle cues of discomfort? Are they like frantically sniffing, unable to look at you? Are they pulling ahead? Do you have them on the right lead equipment that supports them to lower their arousal, be in balance, and be more responsive to you? If you want to know what that is, please send me a message. And yeah, do you know that, okay, they're coping, and maybe they're experiencing some level of stress, but they're not in full-blown reaction. And how do we make sure that we're keeping the time in that sort of space to the amount of time that's underneath that threshold? Establishing a pattern of movement around a space is also really useful. So I work with someone who's got a golden retriever called Rick, and Rick like yells. He loves to demand bark, and he goes ha ha ha, right? And he's got a little cue before he starts to do that, where he just goes, he just does a little, and so if we catch that when he's standing in the queue, we're like, okay, you're getting frustrated because you're standing in the queue. Why don't we just go back to that bowl, back to that plant pot, back to that thing, and back in the queue? Get them moving, and then bring them back. So you want to know what their subtle cues are so that way you can catch them before they escalate and show them that it's actually fine, right? So then if you're, thinking about wanting to have a picnic, or if you want to be able to sit and have a coffee over the long term or take your dog to a pub, you really want to gradually support them to settle over time, right? So you don't want to just take them there for the first time and expect them to sit there while you have an entire meal, right? I want you to think about progression over time. So maybe goal 1 is your dog can briefly enter the space, and that's it. So think about ordering a coffee and leaving. Okay, goal 2 is your dog can lie down on their mat if you're doing relaxation training during quiet hours for a short amount of time. I want you to think the time that it takes to drink an espresso, right? Okay, and then over time, you get to a place where your dog can lie down on the mat during quiet hours while you stop for lunch or a drink. And then maybe you graduate that into in slightly busier times. But just really thinking about that slow progression. And also troubleshooting, right? So maybe you get to a space and you decide, like, actually I can't stay today, and I thought I would be able to stay. Like, that's okay, right? Leaving that space calmly. You can say, sorry, I have to take this to go, or actually just leaving if that's what you've got to do. That is okay, because remember, the point of this is to go outside with the dog and get them acclimatized to these new environments, not for you to have that experience of having that pub lunch or whatever. Similarly with picnics, I would say that a lot of times I see dogs who are not settled at all. Maybe they're not in full-blown reaction. Maybe they are not even barking or anything, but they're just standing, right? Because they're not being supported to settle. So if you want to end up getting to a point where you can have a picnic with your dog, just go to somewhere and get them to lie down, do a bit of that relaxation training, sit down with them, lie down with them. Sit down, maybe, I don't know. Maybe you want to lay down with them in the grass, that's also nice. And then leave, right? Slowly building up the amount of time that they're able to handle, like being still in public. It's a skill that we've got to cultivate. So that's a kind of progression. There's lots of, nuance to this, and every dog is different. I always say be with the dog in front of you. So if you are curious about how you might support your dog to settle more and be more responsive in public spaces, please send me a message. And then finally we have after, right? Like what happens after is also really important. So you want to think about immediately, you want to debrief, right? You want to actually reflect on what was that experience like? What went well? What could have gone better? What do you need to know for next time? If you're with someone, maybe you chat on the way home. If you were alone, maybe you could journal. Maybe you could go home, sit on the couch with your dog and chat with them, right? They were there too. Ask them, how was that for you? I noticed when this happened, you didn't really like that. So maybe next time we can do this. Really try and add some reflection so that way you can build on this process over time. And then you want to think about decompression, right? So like that was a lot. We did a new thing. We were in a bit of a space that felt quite busy. So how do we support a dog to decompress following their time in the outside world? Again, T-Touch Body Wrap, incredible tool for decompression. Or therapeutic enrichment, right? Something to sniff, lick, or chew, just helping them calm down. And then you want to think about integrating, right? Like the nervous system has just done something new. It needs to process. It needs time to process. We're so guilty in this in our everyday lives where we just go into the next thing, right? We just go from one thing to another, and we have no time to integrate and process that experience in our system. So rest days are incredibly important and really useful tools that you can use to support your dog to just process and come down from that experience. And that also feeds their resilience and their ability to cope with and recover from stress. And I wonder how you feel about rest days, because I also support a lot of people who struggle with a lot of guilt about not taking their dog outside. But I just want to emphatically say that rest days are a blessing for your dog. And usually the only barrier to them getting those really solid rest days is their human's guilt. So if you need some support in processing that guilt, also send me a message. So that's what I have for you today. Just thinking about before, during, and after, certainly knowing that that's only comes after foundational work is in place and you feel comfortable, and you've got some real effective strategies for how you manage your dog's arousal in public. Thanks, everyone, and good night.